Erev Tov Rabotai, we're continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Shabbat. We're up to Perek Vav, Mishnah Yud. Today's Mishnah should be Le'elu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana Aranbaev, Neriyahu ben Burcha Israelov, Menuchatam beGan Eden, Amen. The Mishnah begins, Yotzin bebetzat hargol. A person may go outside on Shabbat wearing a chargol's egg, which heals earaches, and the Rav explains the egg of a chargol, one of the 4 species of grasshoppers listed in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 11, pasuk 22, was hung from a person's ear to heal earaches. Uvshen shu'al, a fox tooth, which solves sleeping problems, which the Rav explains. People who had trouble sleeping, what we call insomnia, would wear the tooth of a dead fox to help them fall asleep, and people who were excessively sleepy would wear the tooth of a live fox to keep them awake. Uvmasmer minatzaluv, or a nail from the gallows of one who was hanged, which reduces the swelling of wounds, which the Rav explains. After someone was executed by the court, his body was hanged on a gallows before it was buried, like it says in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 21, pasuk 23. A metal nail or spike was driven into the gallows to keep the corpse from falling. They would go out with that nail. It would reduce the swelling of wounds, mishum refuah, but only if he wears them in order to be healed from these maladies. Now the Rav explains the Mefarshim explain wearing these items is permissible because they're like an amulet made by an expert, which one may wear on Shabbat, like we learned in Mishnah 2, Div Rabbi Meir. This is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. V'chachamim omrim, however, the sages disagree and they say, Af b'chol asur mishum dachei ha'emori, wearing these items is forbidden even on a weekday because of the prohibition against following the ways of the Emorai. Now the Mefarshim explain the sages hold that such metaphysical remedies came from the superstitions of the Amoraim who lived in Eretz Yisrael before it was conquered. All such remedies are forbidden under the biblical prohibition in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 18, pasuk 3, Ubechukotehem lo telechu, and in their ways you shall not go, as Rashi says in Masechet Shabbat, page 67a. According to Rabbi Meir, however, any medical remedy that doctors consider effective, such as those listed here, is not included in the prohibition. And they quote the Mefarshim, quote the Rambam in Hilchot Shabbat, chapter 19, halakha 13. But in any event, the Rav says, Ven halacha ki Rabbi Meir, the halacha does not follow Rabbi Meir. And that is in Rabotai of Perek Vav Mishnah Yud. We begin now with Perek Zayin Mishnah Aleph. Now, as an introduction, a person who mistakenly performed melacha on Shabbat is obligated to bring a chatat offering, a sin offering. However, if he mistakenly performed many melachot on Shabbat, many forbidden violations on Shabbat, or on many Shabbatot, he is not necessarily liable to bring an offering for each melacha that he performed or for each Shabbat that he desecrated. It depends on the type of mistake he made. Our Mishnah discusses 3 types of mistakes that a person might make and how they affect the number of chatat offerings he must bring. Klal Gadol Amru Shabbat. The rabbi stated a major rule about the chatat liability for desecrating Shabbat. Kol hashochech ikar Shabbat ve'asa melachot arbe b'shabbatot arbe. Anyone who forgot the basic commandment to keep Shabbat, meaning he forgot that the Torah prohibits melacha on the 7th day of the week, and as a result performed many melachot on many Shabbatot, eno chayav ela chatat echat, is liable to only one chatat offering to atone for all of them. Now the Mefarshim explain, since he committed all the desecrations as a result of a single mistake, meaning he forgot the basic commandment forbidding melachan Shabbat, he is liable to bring only one offering. Now this is learned by the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, page 69b, from the pasuk in Sefer Shemot, chapter 31, pasuk 13, my Shabbatot you shall observe. Now the use of the plural Shabbatot implies that many Shabbatot are sometimes treated as a single observance, so that if one fails to observe them properly, a single offering atones for all of them. Now logic dictates that this teaching applies to many Shabbatot that were desecrated as a result of a single mistake, which is forgetting the basic law of Shabbat observance. However, there is another pasuk in that section that implies the opposite in pasuk 16. the children of Israel shall observe Shabbat. Now, the use of the singular in this pasuk implies that each Shabbat should be treated as a separate observance. This teaches that there are mistakes for which one must atone separately for each Shabbat he desecrated. Now, logic tells us that this pasuk refers to a case where many Shabbatot were desecrated as a result of separate mistakes. That's the Mishnah is going to teach us this, what this case is. Hayodea yikar Shabbat ve'asa melachot arbe b'Shabbatot arbe. Someone who knows the basic commandment to keep Shabbat, but forgot that the day was Shabbat, and as a result performed many melachot on many Shabbatot, thinking that Shabbat was a weekday. So, for example, he lost track of the days of the week and kept thinking that Shabbat was Friday. After several weeks, he discovered his error. Chayav al kol Shabbat v'Shabbat. He is liable to a separate chatat offering to atone for each Shabbat that he desecrated, because here the Mefarshim explain each desecration of a Shabbat is viewed as a separate mistake, because it is unlikely for a person to go through an entire week without discovering which day of the week it is. Since he desecrated the first Shabbat by forgetting which day it was, and this was most likely corrected during the week, when he desecrated the next Shabbat by again forgetting which day it was, it is considered a new mistake which requires its own chatat offering. However, he is not liable to bring separate offerings for each of the many melachot he performed each Shabbat, because he performed all of them only as a result of one mistake, forgetting that the day was Shabbat. And the next one, Mishnah says, Hayodea shu Shabbat ve'asa melachot arbe b'Shabbatot arbe. Someone who knows that the day is Shabbat, but forgot which actions are prohibited, and as a result performed many melachot on many Shabbatot, chayav al kol av melacha u'melacha. He is liable to a separate chatat offering to atone for each category of melacha that he violated. Which the Mefarshim explain in this Mishnah, the term av melacha refers to each of the 39 categories of labor, whether the melacha he performed was the av of that category or one of his toladot, as Rashi explains in Masechet Shabbat, page 68a. In this case, a person performed many melachot of different categories of labor. For example, he plowed, planted, and harvested. Since he forgot that each of these categories of labor is prohibited, each category violated is considered a separate mistake, which requires its own chatat offering. But there is no reason for each Shabbat to require different chatat. The Gemara derives this from a pasuk as well. Now, in the previous case, the person must bring several offerings because each melachah violated belongs to a separate category. The Mishnah now teaches the rule for the case in which the melachot violated all belong to the same category. Someone who performs many melachot that are similar to one av melacha, meaning they are its toladot, he is liable to only one chatat offering to atone for all of them. Now the Mefarshim explain here too, the Mishnah speaks of a case where the person knows that the day is Shabbat, but he forgot which actions are prohibited. However, in contrast to the previous case where he mistakenly performed different avot or toladot of different avot, in this case he performed an av and its own toladah or several toladot of one av. So for example, he ground wheat into flour, dav melachav tochen grinding, chopped vegetables finely, and cut wood to sawdust, both toladot of grinding. Since his multiple transgressions came as a result of only one mistake, he forgot the prohibition of one category of labor, he is liable to only one offering for all the transgressions. Now, all of the cases in our Mishnah deal with someone who committed his transgression in one lapse of awareness, ha'alama, which means that he did not become aware of his desecration of Shabbat between one transgression and another. Therefore, he is liable to bring an offering only for the original mistake that he made and not for every transgression he committed. However, if he became aware of his Shabbat desecration between one transgression and another, and then forgot again, he is in fact liable to a separate chatat for the transgressions he committed after he forgot again. This will be discussed further in chapter 12, Mishnahs 4 and 6. That is in Rabotai today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.